In this video, we'll introduce the while loop. Starting with an outline of a program, we're going to add code that will introduce the syntax of the while loop and do a simple program. This one, if you have the textbook, is figure 3.6, and we're going to do it exactly as it appears there. Okay, to begin with, we have the outline for the program, and internally there are several variables that are declared. The first one is counter, which is an unsigned integer. Then we have an integer variable grade, integer total, and integer average. And again, these are the same as we have in the book. To begin with, let's do a little housekeeping and let's initialize some of the variables. You should always initialize variables before, as soon as you declare them. So let's initialize counter equal to 0 with a semicolon. And let's initialize the variable total to 0. And I hit the uppercase key by mistake, so let's fix that. So TOTA total equals 0. Now we have these two variables are initialized. All right. Now here's the new stuff. We're going to use a while loop, and this while loop is going to prompt us to enter a sequence of 10 grades one at a time. It's going to accumulate the sum as we import those grades. It'll count the number of grades we have, and then afterwards we're going to print out the average. Okay, the while loop begins with the reserved word while. And you see it turns blue. And just like you saw with the if statement, you follow the while with a relational expression that evaluates to true or false, and you put that in parentheses. So in this case, we want to continue with our loop as long as our counter is less than 10. Now, after you type the relational expression in parentheses, then you follow this with a block of code which you delineate with the curly braces just once again as you did with the if statement. So here's the simple syntax for a while loop. You just begin with the word while, you follow it with a relational expression, and then you have a block of code that will execute beneath the while loop. Also, as with the if statement, as long as this expression evaluates to true, then you'll evaluate and execute the code that follows. The difference with a loop is when you reach the bottom curly brace, instead of continuing down the page, then control is transferred back to the top where you'll do the test again. So that's why it's called a loop. So you'll repeatedly execute the code that's within these curly braces, this block of code. It'll continually execute over and over again until finally this expression in parentheses becomes false. So when it does become false, at that point you will skip past the lower curly brace and continue with the program. So that means that somewhere within this block of code we will have to change counter so that it will eventually become false. Alright, now let's do our simple set of instructions here. First of all, we want to enter a grade. So we're going to do a printf statement to prompt the user. So we'll just say printf double quote enter a grade. Okay, let's keep that on the same line. So put a colon and double quote, right paren and a semicolon. And I've got an extra double quote over here which I need to remove. Okay, so this is just going to prompt us to enter a grade. Then we'll need a scanf to read it. So we have a scanf. And we are going to read in a variable or a value for grade, and it's going to be an integer. So we'll have the double quote %d double quote comma ampersand grade, right paren and semicolon. So we'll prompt the user to enter a grade, and we'll use the scanf then to actually get the value. Okay, now as each grade comes in, we're going to have a running total for this thing. So we need to add it to our current total. So the way we do that is say the total is equal to total plus grade, semicolon. Now, what this statement does is the following. Remember, we have to calculate the right-hand side of the expression completely. We get a value, and then it's assigned to the value on the left. So what this statement is saying is take the current value that you have for total, which is 0 the first time, add to it the grade that was just entered, calculate that sum, and then assign that as a new value for total. So we'll see this kind of expression over and over again in computer science. And we'll do the same thing to update our counter. Now that we've input a grade, we need to count it. So counter is equal to counter plus 1 as well. Okay, so this will take the current value of counter, which is 0. It'll add 1 to get a new value, and it will assign that as our new value for counter. So counter has become 1 at this point, first time through. Now, in order to keep up with what's going on, and we'll print some stuff back to the screen to see how each pass through this loop is going to work. So let's put another printf down here. So let's do a printf, double quote, total, the total is equal to, and let's just do a %d since that's going to be an integer. And let's also print out the value for counter. And we'll see how the counter changes as we go through the loop 10 times. Okay, counter is %d. Then, actually counter should be a %u, because if we look back at the top, it's an unsigned integer. Okay, so counter is an unsigned integer. We need to do a %u here. Okay, then a \n, double quote, comma, and the variable total, comma, and the variable counter, right paren, semicolon. All right, so that constitutes the block of code that we have. We'll enter a grade, we'll accept the grade, we'll do the accumulation, we'll add 1 to the counter, and we'll just print out the information that we have. Now, given that, let's see what we have. So let's build the program. Okay, the build has succeeded. So now let's run this program. So it's starting up. And now you see the window. All right, so we're inside the loop. Let's see if I can make this a little smaller. And we'll track what happens as we go through this. All right, so we're going to be entering 10 grades. So let's enter a grade, and let's just suppose the grades are between 1 and 10. All right, so I'll enter a value of 2. Okay, so the total is 2 at this point, and we've entered 1 grade. Now we have got the prompt enter a grade again. So you see we're going back to the top of the loop. We'll enter our next grade, 5. The total has now become 7, and we've entered a total of 2 grades. So we'll just continue to do this as we repetitively repeat the code that's in the curly braces. Suppose our next score is 8, and you see that the total is gradually increasing. We keep counting the grades. Okay, it's 9. Okay, we can go a little faster now. So that's 4 grades. Let's put in another grade of 4. Let's put in another grade of 8. Let's put in another grade. Let's make this a perfect 10. And I need to increase this a little bit. All right, so that's 7 grades. This is the 8th one. Let's make it 6. Okay, now this is the 9th grade. So let's make that an 8. And here's the last grade. So you see the counter goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And our total has accumulated to 60 at this point. So now this is going to be the 10th grade that I enter, and I'll make it a 10. And we have a total of 70. The counter is equal to 10. But now we get the prompt, press any key to continue, which means that we have exited the loop. So over here, we have found a value. When counter reaches 10, then 10 less than 10 is false. So this expression becomes false. And then we escape from the loop, and we go down here. All right, so that means that we are ready then to compute the average because we've accumulated the score. We know how many variables that we have. So let's continue to add the code to do that. Okay, first I need to stop this. And let's continue. All right, now let's add the code to compute the average. So this is a simple calculation. We have a variable for average, and that's an integer variable. So let's do the calculation. Average is just going to equal to our total divided by our counter. Actually, let's make that 10. We know we have 10 grades this time, so let's use 10, semicolon. And then let's print out the average. Okay, printf, double quote, and let's say the average of 10 grades is, and it's an integer, so let's do a %d. Then we'll do our \n, double quote, comma, and print out the variable average. Right paren, semicolon. So that should do it. Now let's build our program. Let's build it again. Okay, the build succeeded, so we need to run the program. And once again, we'll need to repeat the entry of the 10 grades. And to make this simple, I'm just going to make the grades 1 through 10. Okay, so now let's make that difference. Let's make them something different than that. It might be confusing. So 8 is the first one. Okay, 7. Let's do 6, 9, 4, 9, 10, 3, 5, and here's our last one. Okay, so now this is, this is grade 9. So let's enter a 7. And that was the last one. So that was our 10th score. And then it prints out the average of 10 grades is 6. And we hit any key to continue, which means we've exited our program, we've printed out the average, and we've terminated. Okay, so this illustrates a simple version of the while loop, and that concludes this video.